We've got thoughts on the film The Menu, now that it's streaming on HBO Max. And in other HBO-related topics, we'll discuss the new show The Last of Us, which is getting a lot of hype both online and offline. Is it worth it? We'll answer those things and a bit more on this week's episode of Taking It Down.
Alabama Take Projection.
Hello, good Tuesday to you. Welcome to Taking It Down, where we cordially unpack TV and film for our busy Alabama people who are also obsessed with television and movies as much as we are. I'm Blaine Duncan, one of the hosts. Taking It Down exists because I thoroughly enjoy dissecting why I like what I like and why I dislike what I dislike when it comes to TV, movies, sometimes books and music. I have an English degree, and I'm also a teacher, so I try my best to pair those together to offer insight worthy of your time, because we know you're probably too busy to read everything out there. Plus, I was once your classic 80s and 90s kid who grew up in front of a television set and was thrilled to visit the movie theater for entertainment. Luckily, my ideas aren't the only set of viewpoints on the podcast every week. As with me are always these three. Adam Morrow, who's an erudite, traveling, and studio musician with a penchant for fine literature. Donovan Reinwald, a media specialist with encyclopedic knowledge on film and a lot more. And then there's Natalie Morrow, the first person to ask about fantasy, sci-fi, comics, trashy reality TV, and any Beyonce album. From us, you get the obvious, but you also get the obscure. And here they are. I'll let them say hello. First, this gentleman will take your cardboard boxes. Bring him cardboard boxes. It's Adam Morrow.
Just don't ask what we do with them.
Up next, it's the second coming of William Jennings Bryant. It's Mr. Donovan Reinwald.
Great to be here, Blaine.
Lastly, she's learning more and more about fit checks on Instagram.
I am?
You did one recently.
Oh, shoot. I had been drinking.
So was Blaine when you said that. That sip of coffee almost went airborne.
Oh, shoot.
Well, it was a classic fit check picture. It was just one of those, you'd hold the camera, you take the... Anyway. We'll see more of those in the future from Natalie. Where are we this week? For anyone wondering, you can go to Kodachrome Gardens on Instagram and see what Adam's talking about specifically, especially if you're in Northwest Alabama. You'll want to have a peek. Farm to table. That's what we're talking about.
That's what we're talking about.
It's also what we're talking about with The Menu. Did you see what I did?
It's very good.
Yeah, there you go.
What you did. People are always about farm to table, but I never hear about table to farm. I think that's a market that could be cornered.
That was good.
We're taking stuff off tables to compost. It's happening every day at Kodachrome Garden.
It's the circle of life. The Menu's now streaming on HBO Max. If you haven't seen it, we'll give spoiler warnings in just a little. But to begin, it's a movie directed by Mark Mylod about a young couple who go to a remote island to try out this exclusive restaurant. You have to go there by boat. It costs $1,250. It stars a lot of excellent actors, including Ralph Fiennes, Anya Taylor-Joy, Nicholas Hoult, John Leguizamo. There are others whom you'll recognize. Like every actor is almost recognizable. Let's get right into it, though. That's all the setup you really need. And before we spoil anything, let's just go around and say what you thought.
I thought this was a very pleasant. That's a funny word. Maybe we'll get into why during the conversation. But it's one of those. We love a 90 to 110-minute movie in this house, and it checked that box. We love Ray Fiennes in this house as well, and I mean, he's just great in everything, and he was great in this, and Anya Taylor-Joy was good as always, and it was a fun time.
You personally love her. Do we want to get that out of the way?
Is it a shared love, Natalie? Okay.
I just know that Adam does.
So I liked but did not love this movie.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping
it can be
that
a shared
our
love.
Conversation will tease some of that out of me.
This is an open-minded
I've been kind
household.
of wondering why, because it seems like all the ingredients were there for something I should have loved.
Yeah,
Thank
it
you.
was. It's great.
You're glad that you traded an evening for it?
Like I said, I liked it, and I wasn't disappointed having watched
It's
it.
good fun.
Basically, what y'all said are my feelings too. Like, Ray Fiennes is probably the best part of the movie. Although I would give a big shout out to Hong Chow, who played Elsa. I thought she was great too. And then Nicholas Hoult is so good at just playing a gormless idiot. He's great.
Can I say that on the whole, Nicholas Hoult, his turn from being like in Tolkien and kind of more serious roles like that to now just being a hapless moron most of the time, that's tough.
I think he's great at it, so I hope he's having a great time.
He seems to be.
I mean, you could look at his entire, like, from him in About a Boy when he was a kid to where he is now. I mean, that guy's career is just, it goes everywhere, but good for him. But yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think I agree with Donovan that I enjoyed it while I was watching it. I'm glad I watched it. There was nothing wrong with it. I laughed. I thought it was funny, which I guess, I mean, it's categorized as a dark comedy, I guess. Is it one that's going to like
Sounds like we're all in agreement. When I was watching it, I was very much enjoying it.
Like, yeah,
and then
great.
when
But
about 75% through it, it
mind.
lost some of its momentum. I lost a little of my enjoyment. And then when it was done, I thought, well, I don't regret the time I spent at all. But before we get into anything specific, Adam, you were eager to see this movie as far back as its opening weekend. So what was it that made you have interest instantly?
I think that was mostly wanting to go to the theater and see kind of it was a bit of a slam dunk for the reasons that we've mentioned, that there's a lot of enjoyable folks involved on screen, and it was shorter. It's like, I can go have like a fine time and be back home in 2 hours, and I just haven't been to the theater in a while. A smaller town doesn't always get this kind of movie, so I thought, yeah, why not? But it was the holidays and it never lined up to get over there, unfortunately, so I was glad that it came to HBO this fast.
Pretty fast, yeah, about a month and a half after its release. So for me, it didn't click perfectly, but I definitely felt like it's worth the ride of watching it. I think the back half lacked nuance, which is fine. I mean, not every movie has to be as nuanced as War and Peace.
I'm on page 1,120.
Brag about it.
Out of 7,000, right?
About 1,289.
Let's spoil the menu. If you haven't seen it, pause, come back, or move on to the next segment. The biggest issues, one of them, I'll start with one, was this total lack of clarity on why the staff would be eager to follow through with this idea of dying. I suppose it's a play on how service work is sacrifice, but I needed some sort of bridge because it just stuck with me too much, especially in the back half where I was thinking, why are they going through with this? What did they do that made them so willing to kill and die? That blind devotion.
I think they just served rich people for too long. But that's a good point, Blaine, because the closest they come to addressing that, and I mean, I think if you look at any of the motivations to finally, you might not, it might not bear up under weight, but the closest they get to addressing it is when, they have the one sous chef.
Yep.
And they're like talking to her, and she's like, "Oh no, everyone dying at the end. That was my idea."
But she never gives a why. And it's almost as if the writers either didn't have one or that fell on the cutting room floor.
My assumption is they didn't necessarily have one, which is, I mean, it is a horror movie. It's kind of okay to have something be a little bit motiveless. Like, why does Michael Myers kill?
Yeah.
You don't need to get into a big long discussion of that. It's just the situation is terrifying. But then there's the comedy aspect to it, and maybe they want a little social commentary in there, and so
that seemed to be a big part. Yeah,
mix all that together, and you might need a little bit more.
That's about the conclusion I was drawing, that the service industry is a slave to the customer or the chef wants, but that goes hand in hand with I die for my art, especially from Ralph Fiennes.
Donovan, when you started pointing out a specific incident there, I thought you were going to talk about the sous chef. I suppose he was a sous chef who killed himself early on. That's when the stakes first really get raised, and his motivation for doing so. His is the one that is fully fleshed out of why he's doing what he's doing. Maybe that it doesn't make complete sense, but I'm with you that it doesn't necessarily have to. And I think maybe I thought about The Bear a little bit with this movie, and how when it was having its run over the summer, a lot of people were writing kind of think PC things about how chefs had been turned into rock stars and celebrities and all, and kind of trying to poke at the idea of, well, it's goofy that rock stars are beyond reproach or celebrities are beyond all these things. Like, why are we? But specifically to attach it to people who are cooking food and kind of people kind of, I don't know that Bourdain fell into this, but he was certainly revered by these people who the chef can do no wrong, and it ends up being deeply exploitative, both of labor and letting the whims of the wealthy kind of dictate everything. I don't know, that complete blind commitment, the way that they even all slept in the same room, all of that stuff was just like a heightened version of that to me.
I think I got the most of that. If you hear clicking, it's because I'm constantly clicking out of this tab to check on who somebody's name is, since I always forget it. But I think, Adam, I got the most of what you were just mentioning there with Hong Chau's Elsa.
Yes.
Where like she's 100% locked in a way that is really kind of scary.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder if, they ask about burnout and she doesn't really understand. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if that means, the stakes have not been raised so far. They haven't stumbled onto an island where this has been going on for long. It's just a group of people who have hit their breaking point. The staff that's left could have been just the most fanatical. It doesn't necessarily mean that like they killed staff members who were not dedicated. There could have been a lot of turnover in the years that it's been open up until that point.
I'll say the second issue I had, and it seems to be the biggest because so much hinges on this, is the Anya Taylor-Joy character of Margot turning Chef Slowik in so easily by saying she didn't like the food and just wanted a cheese hamburger.
I kind of like that. I don't know. This is why I was kind of hoping this conversation would draw stuff out of me, because I couldn't exactly tell you why I liked it, but it was just, she's the first person to tell him no, and that's what saves her, and everyone else is kind of stuck in this rich person foodie world where for whatever reason they can't really say no, and she just gets out by asking for a cheeseburger.
I like that explanation, but the fact that she saw that from seeing a picture of him smiling as a teen felt pretty flimsy. It maybe if she would have just said no and then it happened, but it all ties back to that picture of him, which I don't know. I needed the cause and effect to be either clearer or bigger.
The only thing that could strengthen that to me is that he recognized in her another service industry person, that she's on their side. So I think maybe that they had a shared sense of like tribal identity, for lack of a better phrase, that allowed him to move quicker through motivations like that, if that makes sense. I'm not saying it's an airtight solution to the issue, but if she's able to kind of tug at the heartstrings of the guy in the picture that she saw as a younger man, that helps explain it.
It definitely is like wants you to at least entertain the idea, right, that she's helping him access that simpler time when maybe he did enjoy making food instead of just wanting to kill everyone.
Exactly. It was just another example of what felt like there might have been a scene missing or something missing. They did establish that the service industry connection, that was clear enough. It was just getting through the points of that final moment for Margot, just getting to leave the island.
One of its weaknesses is it wanted to have its cake and eat it too. It wants to work.
All the food puns you can get today.
Thank you.
You're just packing them in our mouths.
You'll be the envy of every Jerry and Jane on the block.
Beat me to it.
It wanted to kind of engage you intellectually, but also emotionally. Like, it wanted to engage you intellectually while working on an emotional level. I'm not sure that those two. It may have resulted in it being sometimes too clever by half, or thinking that it's more clever than it was.
But what if it was, and you're just one of the dumb people that paid $1,000 for a plate of food?
I really could be.
It was a reflection on you, Donovan.
I felt like the characters' motivations and all that were mostly supposed to work at sort of a more subconscious emotional level. But then what it wants to say about the service industry works on more of a higher brain thought level. And the two shaken together, it's kind of a weird cocktail. And sometimes it really works, and sometimes it leads to the situations you pointed out where it's like, well, maybe we needed a little bit more.
Does it come as a surprise to any of you that this is an Adam McKay production? Didn't it feel like one of his films where he wants to satirize something and he gets a little too pointed and deliberate?
I was actually surprised to see, I think it's on the producers, like Will Ferrell's one of the producers.
Yeah.
It's like seeing Mel Brooks producing The Elephant Man. It's like, what? What happened there?
But I do like Adam McKay. I like him because of his pointedness sometimes, because there's nothing wrong with that on some occasions.
And it was fun to, Donovan, you talking about the link not always being there. Like, it was fun on a visceral level to see, like, finance bros get set on fire. You know what I mean? Or bad things happen to these obnoxious people that are so over the top that they... I mean, I guess you can feel bad for them a little bit on some level. Like, they've made mistakes that have put them where they are, or whatever's going on with Nicholas Holt's character that makes him so needy for that approval and blah, blah, blah. But seeing people who take pictures of their food and who act with that much entitlement...
I've been wanting to hang them for a long time.
Like, it scratches that itch.
It does. It was a bit of a miss, or maybe I'm just a little sad that John Leguizamo's character just got put to death because he made his career's faulting.
I actually thought that was very funny.
It was funny, but it was like, okay, well, he's going to get grouped into these people just because he's put out a couple bad movies. Like,
Well, he's obviously willing to spend $12.50 to come for a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
and name drop, I suppose that's his biggest sin.
I loved every second of the food critic and the guy who just agrees with her, like, as she's
Yes, because I hate those people too.
supposedly dissecting what's happening in front, and she just has no idea what's going on. And then the guy that's with her is always like, "Yeah, yes, exactly. I was just going to say that."
I think it's our editor or something. Yeah.
Yeah, it's something like that. It's that was go to what Adam said. It was kind of enjoyable to see her totally out of her, both him and her, like totally out of their depth all of a sudden, and like with no control over what was going on.
The last big moment I'll talk about before I get into some of the things I really loved, when the chef whispers to Tyler, and then we see Tyler a few minutes later having committed suicide. Did that feel like the writers not knowing how to get Tyler off screen and dead, or did it work for you because of the ambiguity?
It honestly worked because of something is, like you said, something's wrong with him. Or no, sorry, like Adam said, something's wrong with him where he needs this approval. And it's the only thing in the world that matters to him. He gets humiliated. Even so, as we get, the funny food description with like Tyler's mess or whatever it was. One overcooked, whatever. I don't know. It kind of worked for me. It didn't bug me.
Yeah, didn't bother me. That all flowed, I thought.
Had it not had a couple more flimsy moments, that wouldn't have been as stand out to me as it was. But looking back, it sort of stands out now. But some of the things I did love, you guys can comment on. Ralph Fiennes' performance is fantastic.
Has he won an Oscar yet?
Maybe for The English Patient. Did he win for that one?
Did he win? Which is a terrible movie, but he should. He's great. He's able to go from
Charming.
Charming to ominous to menacing but strangely charming. He's great. He was this movie definitely, one of the reasons this movie was definitely a no phone movie for me was Ralph Fiennes was so much fun to watch.
The claustrophobia of the movie got me hooked. The mystery of some of the characters inside of such claustrophobic situations, the mystery did fizzle, I think, a little, but they came into this situation and you each knew that they had a little baggage pretty quickly. And of course, I love the satirization of the 1% and foodies.
I was pleased. This is really neither here nor there, but I was pleased to see Arturo Castro, who was one of the finance bros, getting work. Because I don't know if any of y'all watched Broad City, but I really liked Broad City, and he is one of the main characters, like gay Peruvian friends in that. And he's great. He's one of the funniest parts of it. So just seeing him here, it was like, he's getting work. Great. And he's from Guatemala, and he's completely nailed an American accent.
He played a huge role in the Apple TV Plus series Mr. Corman with
Did he really?
with Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Yeah, huge role.
Okay.
And he was great. I remembered him so distinctly from it. Let's have a show of hands, figuratively, on how many of you thought it was going to be a cannibalism plot line.
100%.
Oh, 100%.
It's nice to play with that expectation, wasn't it? Because I kept thinking, when's that coming in? When are they going to kill someone and eat them? That's going to happen.
I was thinking it was a literally eat the rich situation.
I thought it was going to be the most dangerous game all along. It wasn't really that.
Yeah, hints of that.
And CT would show up.
Anya Taylor-Joy's performance was note perfect, but even she couldn't sell the all of the sudden ability to gain freedom, but still pretty good.
I really enjoyed her paired with Nicholas Hoult. He's kind of that quote unquote nice guy at the beginning, and then as it goes on, he becomes more like petulant and rich. Like, I paid for this, so enjoy it. And her acting is such that like you can see her like changing under that, and I'm not quite sure what I'm saying.
Stewing.
Here, because you can see her. You can see the way her relationship with him changes, and it doesn't change by anything but by her use of her body and her face, really, and sometimes her tone of voice, and it's great. I thought she was great.
I have beef with her performance. One small thing. I think she's great. I don't think that she has ever eaten a hamburger before.
It didn't look like it.
As just like the way she was holding it and biting into it, I was like, this woman has never eaten a hamburger. She is clearly not from the States.
I am 100% there with you. Like, just something about that scene, it was like, she's never had a hamburger in her life.
Her only experience is watching the people eating like the Carl's Jr.'s burger.
Yes.
Looked a lot like those supermodels that used to do that. It's so true.
Yeah.
I'll tell you my favorite moment. We'll slowly bring the movie to a wrap. There was no more better scene to me than when the chef asked if the assistant had student loans. Where'd you go to college? Brown University. Do you have student loans? No. Then you're definitely going to die. To me, that was worth the price of admission, so to speak.
Like Adam said, there's a lot to be said for a good 90-minute hang. And this one was, I'm not sure if its social commentary was as trenchant as it wanted it to be, but it was kind of a fun eat the rich, not weird, but masterful performing from Ralph Fiennes, who is giving it 110% the whole movie. And just kind of it was a good time. I didn't play on my phone. I wasn't bored. I enjoyed it.
I think we're all in agreement there. Let's take a break on the second half of the program of our podcast, The Last of Us, first episode only. So here's the segment where we'll have our thousands and thousands of listeners on edge. It's The Last of Us. More people have watched this premiere on HBO and HBO Max than almost anything else. It had the most watched debut for the channel with the exception of House of the Dragon. In case you don't know about it, we'll cover things really broadly before we spoil the first episode, but I think it would be hard not to know something. By now, the second episode's aired. We're only going to talk about the first one. The Last of Us is based off a video game of the same name, and from reports, it's pretty loyal to it in episode 1. The show stars Pedro Pascal as Joel, who's been tasked to get Ellie from a ruined Boston to another place. Ellie's played by the Game of Thrones actress Bella Ramsey. And as you probably know, their big conflict is that they're traveling in a zombie-like apocalypse, though it's not quite zombie, and that word's never used, really. I think the creators even have trepidation with that word or from using it. Okay, we'll get into it broadly, and then we'll set a spoiler warning, just in case you haven't watched the first episode. How did the episode titled When You're Lost in the Darkness strike you?
If this is a faithful adaptation of the video game, I want to play that video game.
Agreed.
I'm a little behind on video game related things. I'm interested in how you tell a story via video game. That's how behind I am. That, and I think the only video games I've played are sports related, which is not as much storytelling at all. I'd watch a few minutes of somebody playing this. I think maybe I should do that on YouTube or something.
In case my comment didn't make it clear, this was it was an hour, and I think the first episode was an hour and 20 minutes.
Big first episode.
It didn't feel that long. I think it was part of it was just, even though it's stuff we've kind of seen before in other places, like The Walking Dead, especially springs to mind. Everything from the initial meltdown of society to kind of learning what the rules are post apocalypse, I found engrossing, and it didn't hurt that the acting is all really solid throughout the series from pretty much everyone.
I do think that the dialogue was a little too video game dialogue. I love a video game that I can just sit and watch somebody else play. So, like, to me, that's not
Huh.
like, if it's got a good story, sometimes I'll ask Adam, "Hey, will you go play that game? I just want to watch you." But
Wow.
so I think that the story is going to be really fun and interesting. Maybe not original, but that's okay. But I think the dialogue feels very like break scene in a video game. Which and I've heard this first episode was pretty, like I think Donovan said, it was pretty true to the game. Like, they are like side by side stills of the game versus the show.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully that will deviate a little bit moving forward. I mean, I'm in it for another episode or two, unless it gets too Walking Dead-ish, which it seems like it could.
What are the hallmarks of a video game dialogue? Just short and clippy or
Yeah, and
something?
it's very, just it tells you exactly what you need to know, because you're not going to sit there and have a conversation in a video game. They're just going to say, the tool you need is in that box right there. You know?
That was kind of the complaint with, and I was thinking of this film watching it because it's not a video game adaptation, but people compared it to a video game in 1917.
Mm.
Whenever there was a long talkie segment, they always compared it to a kind of stilted video game cutscene.
Hmm.
And I was thinking about video games and their adaptations to probably no real effect, but I thought like how funny it was that this one seemed much more natural to me, and it is a video game adaptation, than something that is, based on real events that kind of plays like a video game.
Writer Neil Druckmann for the video game helped with the development and I think helped write the show or help show run it. Craig Mazin is the other brain on the show, and he wrote and produced for Chernobyl from HBO. And one of my questions coming in was, did it feel like a show based off a video game? And it sounds as though it kind of sort of did, at least with the dialogue for you.
Yeah.
Well, what did you think, Blaine? Since you said the most video games that you've experienced lately have been like sports related.
Yeah.
Did you come in and think, okay, this is just a video game?
It was
Or
hard
was it
for me not to separate this show from The Walking Dead because I actually saw that show through conclusion. I was
okay?
one of the masochists who did it. It was fine. I mean, I always thought it was kind of fun. I had a soft spot for it because of how it began and when it began. But really hard to separate this one from The Walking Dead. It's just
Yeah, especially those first couple episodes, right?
yes, and it's just so much well produced. And look, I'm a sucker for a disaster, a apocalypse show movie if it's even fairly well done. And this one, I would definitely put it in the category of fairly well done.
I'd agree. I don't think I saw anything like groundbreaking, but what I saw was well done and compelling, and it makes me. I wanted more when the episode was over.
Yeah, 100%. You give me this scenario or any variation on it, and I will watch it, read it sometimes. I'll even lean into or pick up a book in this genre.
I think because it stuck closer to its apocalypse, I found myself more instantly engaged with this than I did with Station 11, which had a great first episode, but then the second and third kind of meandered, and I sort of lost interest in it. And kind of similar setup, right? Like the the older man looking after the younger child.
Yeah. Station 11 was really great for its first half. You're right.
So is this also just The Mandalorian? Is that what this is?
Yeah. I had the joke in mind of how many times is Pedro Pascal going to play the surrogate father?
Got to get a kid somewhere from somewhere else.
Yeah.
And people are after him. Better look out.
Kid from location A to location B.
Better not get feelings about that kid.
One of the things the show abandoned was that the fungus infection doesn't travel in the air, but via bites. So, and that seems to be because they didn't want the cast to wear gas masks constantly.
That seems fair.
It
I mean,
does.
look at something like The Mandalorian,
Yeah,
where he is in a mask the whole time.
yeah. So he
And
got
they
away
can-
from the mask.
Yeah, yeah, or even think of like superhero movies, like how often they, the ones that wear masks, that mask ends up being destroyed, or you can see through it somehow because it's really hard to act and care about people when they're just all in gas masks.
I found it pretty easy during COVID.
Just from a visual effects level, the fungus infestation was really cool.
Yeah, a different look to the monster, so to speak.
Yes, and then I was struck and again, this is just from a visual effects perspective, but I thought it was neat, albeit horrifying, when they encounter what finally happens to you when the fungus goes through your whole body in the subway station underneath Boston.
Let's go ahead and set our spoiler warning just in case anyone's made it this far.
Oh yeah,
Oh, I'll say this, which really isn't a spoiler, but apparently it's somewhat realistic that type of spore can't infect humans per se, or just can't, period, but they can affect ants in a way and have a very similar effect.
yeah.
Now, my research is limited on that, so, but yeah, that's really bizarre. I didn't know that.
I feel like scientists went into a slight panic of, don't worry. Yes, it happens in ants. It's not going to happen in people. I saw a few articles where it's like, stop panicking.
Let's break down some of the episode bit by bit. Did the introduction play well for you with the bait and switch of Joel's daughter, who dies pretty quickly, right after the outbreak, actually?
Yeah, what a shame. That actress was so good. I really liked her.
I knew that she couldn't survive,
Right.
Because I knew that Bella was the.
Mm.
But I actually I wanted more content for this show, so I actually listened to their inside the episode thing, and the showrunners talked about how they wanted Joel's daughter to feel like the protagonist.
Yeah,
like there could be a whole show built around her, and I think they succeeded.
I think so too. It was very affecting, her death.
Yeah, especially there was something so faceless and random about it.
Yes, they did a great job of casting there. That it was a steal to get that young lady. I think her. Oh, don't ask me for her name. Sarah Adams, maybe is her name. But what a
she's British, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what a steal to get
Yeah.
her, and for such a small role, because it's her job to make you care so quickly and then lose her so quickly. Have you guys seen any trailers beyond the first episode? Because there's a bit of a spoiler involved.
I've seen the trailer that is like coming up in the season so far.
But there are other ones that kind of give something away. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I'm not sure that I do.
Okay, I won't say it.
Yeah, probably.
I won't say it here. It'll come up in our conversations through the weeks. Did the outbreak feel really fast? I suppose it could travel that fast, right? But
I mean, think about
once it
like
hit, it was done.
think about like, you got something moldy in your refrigerator, next thing you know, everything's covered in it. Like, it doesn't take
Yeah.
its time.
Yeah.
I thought it did a good job of being like it's happening slowly and then all at once.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of I mean, we all just lived through a pandemic or are living through a pandemic. And it kind of it did kind of like feel like stuff when COVID started really hitting, like it just cascaded.
It was a cascade. It was a slower cascade, obviously. It's probably obvious that it wasn't, we heard about it in China, and then it took a couple months before I think some of us encountered anything that was close to home.
They kind of not lampshaded. I don't know what nodded towards that, right? When it's something has been happening overseas for a while.
Oh,
right?
okay. Did they really?
Yeah, they're like background radio conversation or TV conversations about it.
Nice.
They
Maybe I
wonder where
missed that.
Jakarta is.
Yeah,
and it's in Indonesia.
Kudos then. That's awesome. The 20-year time jump might have felt abrupt. Of course, they're going to keep it as close to the game, I think, for episode 1 anyway. But I'm going to guess, having not played it, they're going to lean heavily into flashbacks with that.
I couldn't tell you if they are or not
Hard to say.
because
Okay.
what are they going to flash back to?
Just how Joel and his brother Tommy got to Boston, maybe, or some of that's how that played out and what led Tommy to leave.
Okay, because I wonder if maybe I can see like maybe like what got Tommy to leave, but I kind of wonder if any of that really matters. You know, we have what is obviously the single most important event of his life, his daughter dying, and then we
Mhm.
kind of are introduced to his life in Boston, which by the way is a very faithful recreation of the real Boston.
Walled
Wait,
in.
Yes.
walled in, dangerous, authoritarian.
Absolutely. Don't
Okay.
go to Boston. You heard it here first. No, Boston's fine. Don't anyone get after me.
All of our Boston listeners.
I know Boston people are angry. They're gonna get me.
Wait, your brother lives in Boston.
Not anymore. You moved to North Carolina.
Okay, well, I was going to say we might have one Boston listener on occasion. One of the things, Don, when you messaged me about after I was suggesting, hey, let's watch this, was Pedro Pascal's performance. He's playing another character who's taking care of a younger character. We joked about that. If I can point to one thing in this episode that I thought this is going to be promising, it's when Bella Ramsey's character, Ellie, says your watch isn't working, and he makes the tiniest twitch with his
Yeah.
eyes as he's laying down on his couch, and I thought, oh, this is he. At least the actors are going to be putting their all into this, very nuanced and very slight, and I loved it.
This has given him room to spread his wings in a way that I haven't seen in The Mandalorian and that he wasn't really able to do in Wonder Woman 1984, which I think are the two most recent things I've seen him in.
Did you not watch Narcos the first season? It's 2
I did
seasons.
watch the first season of Narcos.
Man, he's good in it.
Is he in that? I totally forgot he was in that.
Poor Pedro Pascal. You forgot him?
Who does he play?
Oh, one of the agents tracking down.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, no, I thought I hadn't seen him in anything. I did watch the first season of Narcos, but I thought I hadn't seen him in anything until he appeared in Game of Thrones.
Assuming he's only been in those things that we're talking about, I think I've seen every bit of his work. It's kind of weird.
Well, did you kind of feel the same way that this is letting him act in a way that he hasn't gotten to act in his other shows and movies?
Well, I remember him pretty well in Narcos, and I think that he had a little bit more wiggle room to do. He kind of had a little bit of a romance going there as almost like a D plot or an E plot, but yeah,
Maybe it gives him room to stretch his wings in a way that he hasn't done since Narcos.
probably so, and maybe even more so. Bella Ramsey is doing pretty great. She is going to be a really great actress, probably. I did think it was a little silly for the show to play as coy as they did with Ellie being resistant to the infection. It's almost like they wanted that to be a mystery for the first half, and it was really obvious that was the case with her character.
Yeah, and it's kind of hinted at in the trailers. And if
Mhm.
you know anything about the game, you know, like even the synopsis of the game,
Mhm.
it's not a surprise. So I guess like kind of in universe it made sense, but for us, the way they did the reveal I thought was great, where she tests, positive.
Mm.
Um,
I suppose it
also
does help set that up. Yeah.
but I agree with you that if you knew anything coming in, you probably knew that she was resistant to the fungus.
I love the cold open from 1968. Always intrigued by a show who has that prediction kind of feel, the foreshadowing feel, obvious though, as though it is. And I love a show or movie who has sirens and lots of helicopters in the background. I always feel like, shit, man, that's going to happen.
Why did fungus taking over people make like power transformers blow up?
I assume that was people doing something.
It just seemed like there were some things happening that weren't necessarily.
Not attributable to the fungus.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and that was one of the things that I thought was just felt too quickly paced. Excuse me, it felt too quickly paced because I thought like power wouldn't be just shutting off right then. It's just a bunch of people getting sick in their houses.
I actually really liked, and maybe it just moved too fast for me to think about it, but I did really like the fast pace of the way it was shot and directed. the fast pace of those opening, the beginning of the outbreak.
Yeah, very point of view at times, I suppose, which goes hand in hand with the video game.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of. I really like the scene when they were in the truck fleeing.
That's exactly what I was thinking about. Yeah.
The game itself is a third person perspective, but kind of like you get it over the shoulder. And I felt like we were getting good over the shoulder perspective from our various cast members.
Donovan, did you recognize Anna Torv from Mindhunter?
No,
Yeah, she was unrecognizable.
yeah, no, I didn't recognize her at all.
And once I put the pieces together, I'm so glad she's in this. She's going to be great if she's used a lot and doesn't die off. Like I said, I don't know.
I thought it was kind of cool too. This is one of those other things that like this is a little neither here nor there, but like the woman who plays Marlene is actually Marlene in the game.
That's right. Yeah.
And I don't know. I thought that was cool. Like obviously she does a good job, and I thought the conflict between like the federal forces and the Fireflies, well, in the background was pretty compelling. But it was kind of cool to see how acting for a video game translates into acting for a movie camera.
Here's a quick bit of trivia. The television host from 1968 in the cold open was one of the final villains in The Walking Dead.
Who was that? He looked so familiar to me, and I forgot to look him up.
I don't know the actor's name, but I say villains. He was kind of sort of villainous in the final season of The Walking Dead.
I kept thinking I knew him from somewhere.
Did you recognize that one of the scientists from that scene was the brother from The Mummy? That's all I could think about.
That's awesome.
And was the other scientist from The White Lotus, or am I just confusing two actors?
I was too distracted by the Mummy. I don't even remember.
All right. Well, other than recapping and saying our initial thoughts, there isn't a lot to unpack in this. I don't think there's not a lot of deep analysis you could do. It's pretty straightforward for an opening episode if you knew anything about the game or this genre of television.
Yeah, there are some, like, the way they introduced you to kind of the brutality of the new world was really good. Like with the kid coming in and testing negative, and then But I mean, you kind of also like. I wasn't shocked or surprised by it. Like you knew what was going to happen as soon as that poor kid stumbled in.
Once you figure out how society has now set itself up, I'm going to be, I mean, it was thoroughly entertaining, but I'm a sucker for this genre. So I'm excited to watch. We may bring this show up again in the future weeks. Final thoughts on that first episode?
I'm definitely planning to watch more. I wanted more.
I'll give it one more episode.
We'll see. That's it for us, people. Thank you so much for listening. Follow us on socials. Twitter and Instagram even has a Taking It Down account itself. That's as Taking It Down Pod on both of those. Subscribe to us in your favorite podcast app. Share us with a friend. Tell us what you've been watching. And we'll talk to everybody next Tuesday.